My name is Daniel Sussman. I'm the project director here at Harmonix. I'm the project lead for Rock Band 3. I'm kind of like an old school Tetris guy. That was the one that I realized I had a problem with games where, you know, it's sort of 3:30 in the morning and I'm, you know, at my parents' Mac and like they think I'm sleeping and, you know, there are horrible, horrible consequences from my behavior. But so that was a big moment. You know, I was a big Pac-Man fan. I think there are a lot of folks like me who had absolutely no ambition whatsoever to work in games. You know, I liked to play games, and it never really occurred to me that there was actually an industry. And you know, it's a young industry in a lot of ways. And so I ended up at Harmonix in 2001 through a connection to a friend of mine, and here we are. But you know, I started out in the QA department and kind of worked my way through production to management, and you know, it only occurred to me in like, you know, 2004 really that like, hey, wait a second, like what was a job is now a career. You know, Harmonix was really small when I started, and so, you know, for whatever reason, I felt like I was able to work really well with a lot of folks. You know, a lot of folks who are now, you know, senior managers, VP level folks. You know, Greg LaPiccolo, Tracy, Mike Dornbrook. They were really the ones who, you know. So my story is, so I started in QA, and then, you know, as I sort of outgrew the QA department, I sort of had my sights set on the audio department. You know, I'm a Berkeley grad, I'm a musician, and I was like, yeah, I'd like to make music. I think that'd be fun. And, you know, Mike actually sat me down and was like, well, have you thought about production? And I was like, well, I'd like to think about production. Tell me, what is production? And what does a producer do? And, you know, and so, you know, we sort of had a dialogue about sort of, you know, what, you know, how games get made and how, you know, what kind of structure there is behind the sort of creative elements of game design and game production. And it was incredibly interesting to me, and you know, and here we are. I went to Emerson College for 2 years with an interest in sort of recorded music, and sort of outgrew that program. And transferred to Berkeley, and then I spent 3 years at Berkeley doing music production and engineering, and learning solfege and ear training and counterpoint, and you know, this like pretty deep music, you know, curriculum that they have. So out of that, I sort of did a lot of strange things, and again, it's one of these sort of full circle moments for me where I sort of think about the education that I got at Berkeley and sort of the skills that I learned there working with people and kind of understanding music and its impact on people, and a lot of the things that I learned are totally relevant to the work that I do here, although not on the surface. You know, I don't actually make music at Harmonix, but we trade in music. You know, and the fact that I am a musician and I play in bands is hugely, I mean, I think you see a lot of that character in the games that we make, and you know, not just from me, but from all the other folks who are also like deeply connected to kind of the medium, really. It's a combination of things. You know, I'm driven by kind of a profound appreciation for the music game category. You know, there's, you know, I really think that, you know, Harmonix stands for incredibly honorable ideals. You know, and you know, video games are an expression of a deeper goal here, right? You know, and we're not necessarily trying to just make a fun, casual kind of, you know, addictive experience. You know, the secret to what we're doing is that we're furthering people's connections with music, and you know, whether that is, you know, a result of people hearing bass lines that they never heard before, or you know, deciding that they want to learn how to play guitar or get in a band or do something musical with their lives or their time. It's all sort of the seed that's planted by this interaction that they have through kind of our games. And so, there is this sort of subtle manipulation of pop culture that like makes me incredibly happy. So I work a lot and I don't have a lot of free time, but most of my free time is spent, I'm in 2 bands. I play guitar in one band, bass in another, and that takes up a lot of my time. And then, I go home and I cook and clean and do all the boring things that you do at home. Any creative expression is an artistic expression. Our games are art in a certain way. In another way, they are a means to an end. They sort of present a lot of other people's art in a context that is new to folks, and I think that's sort of an interesting element of the music game category. For the player, they're not necessarily making music. They're experiencing music that other people have made, and they're doing so in this lush and beautiful world that we create, and there's a lot of creativity and skill and raw talent that is exhibited in the worlds that we create and the sort of presentation of our experience. But it's funny. It's a good question. I think our games are art on a sort of social level, right? But I think it's important to remember that the thing that we trade in really is this amazing content from bands all through the years. I wanted to go on safari, and I wanted to shoot animals with guns, and that was sort of a long time ambition of mine as a child. Not just any animals, like tigers and lions and gazelles and stuff like that. I'm a fan of like competitive action, and so I really like sports games, kind of like one-on-one, soccer, football kind of thing, and those are probably the games that I play the most casually. I'm also, I play a lot of sort of async multiplayer stuff on, social networks and whatever else, where it's, who can create the most words out of these letters? I do that way too often. A game has a chance to be successful if it's obvious that the team and the sort of machine behind it, which goes all the way through the publishing and marketing and the organization, if they all are passionate about the project and they understand the game and the market and kind of the whole picture. The other side to that is that, if you have confusion in your organization, even on the development team, about what the project is and, what's the style of the game? Can you talk about the game in like concise sentences, and does everybody sort of understand what it is you're trying to achieve? And then kind of take that message all the way up through your publishing organization, through to the marketing team and the distribution network. If you have misunderstandings there, you're in trouble, I think. I wish that price was not such an issue. And there are a lot of games, and actually we're guilty, right? It's like that, Rock Band 1, if you didn't have an Xbox 360, you were looking at $700 out of pocket to play this game. And I think that I would love for the government to subsidize gaming in some way that they're not, because I think that there's a lot of really good things that come out of a lot of games, and they are potentially very constructive, actually. And it's unfortunate that between the consoles and the kind of peripherals, not just for music games, but for any game, all the accessories and then the software itself, everything is just expensive. We bring in a lot of people who are interested in kind of how games get made, and the advice that I give to everyone is play games, not just for fun, but think critically about what you're seeing and try to sort of develop an understanding of why decisions were made. When things are happening, it's like, okay, you're reacting to all this craziness, everything's exploding and it's wild and crazy. Why? And what is compelling? And think critically about what it is you're seeing. My guess is that you're here at Harmonix talking to a bunch of people, and I don't know if you've talked to enough people yet to figure out that, in fact, harmonics is full of many a frustrated musician. There are a lot of people who work here because, for whatever reason, they were not able to cut it as a working musician and a touring, in a touring band. And there are people that have had phenomenal success, but not sustainable phenomenal success. And I think for me, if the tea leaves had been sort of spread a different way back in the day, I would have loved to be a professional musician. I mean, there are a lot of things that I don't want to do, and then there are things that I don't think I would be very good at, like nursing. I'd be a terrible nurse. I really like Munch, the Norwegian painter, yeah, I don't know. I cry on planes. There's something about the altitude that makes me incredibly emotional, which is out of character. Or maybe it's so in character that it is repressed in every way and just, exhibited at low altitude, low oxygen scenarios. I have no idea. But yeah, I cried during Iron Man and Iron Man 2. I cried during The Tooth Fairy. I cried during The Tooth Fairy with The Rock as a hockey player / Tooth Fairy. I love to swear, and I consider the cuss word to be an integral part of the, American lexicon. I have to say that fuck is sort of my favorite swear word just because of its adaptability. It's like, it can be used in so many different situations, completely appropriately or inappropriately, depending on the context, I guess, but it can mean a lot of different things, both like angry, it covers a pretty nice spread of sort of emotional expression. Well, ironically, I listen to, most of the stuff that I listen to at work is the stuff that is in the shell of our games. I tend to have the game running like all the time, and so it's kind of all the harmonics bands that are in the shell. I mean, this last year, that's sort of, that made up the background music for RB3, and that's sort of what I ended up listening to. And then, we listen to a lot of music here just to sort of analyze gameplay and sort of think about our set lists. And it's actually one of the things that I love about this job is that, we work in a field where it's okay for me to listen to, a lot of rock music at work. And, actually I have to set aside time to do it, it's an important part of my job. I'm not really playing any games right now. This is, at the end of the cycle, I sort of, it's important for me to sort of, on the one hand, take a step back and get away from video games for a couple of weeks, and then sort of as we start up on the next cycle, I sort of start approaching it academically. But one of the tragedies of my career here is that the sort of critical thought that goes into both game design and development now manifests in the way that I play games. It's hard for me to play a lot of console games for fun because I start thinking about how they're made and start thinking about things that are sort of a layer on top of what I'm actually doing. And I remember that not being the case way back when.